Okay, so somebody requested that I do a drunk history, and I don't know if that person knows or not, but there are already comedians that do, like, drunk histories or whatever, and if you're not aware of what I'm talking about, ask me tomorrow and I will link you, because they're pretty fucking awesome. So, for drunk history, though, I'm gonna do my favorite part of history ever, and I don't have the PowerPoint to go with it anymore because all of my computers have been wiped over the years. But if you really want, you can go to Military History Channel or whatever, and you can see the episode that they did for the drunk history that I'm about to do, but they did it sober. So, my favorite part of history ever is the 1914 Christmas Truce. Represent, yeah. Alright, time to get schooled. 1914 is the year. Guess what was happening in 1914? World War I. You are so good at this game. However, who is missing? The United States. The United States is not in this story, just so you know. It was Britain and France versus Germany. Not Nazi Germany. Let's get this straight. We're talking about World War I. Stay on topic here. Stay on topic. So, they were in the trenches. World War I was all about the trench warfare, which was a horrible idea. It really didn't do shit, but it killed a lot of people. Good going, fucking world powers. You're great. Christmas comes around, 1914, during World War I. And so what do they do for Christmas time? All of a sudden, the German side of the lines, and some parts, not all parts, let's get that straight. It wasn't across the entire fucking line, because if you know anything about World War II, there's basically one basic line, you know, kind of straight, but, you know, a little wavy, across, you know, the France and German border, where there was trenches going on, right? Trenches. And it wasn't everywhere, but most parts of the line. All of a sudden, the Germans started singing Christmas carols. And so then the French and the English on the other side of the trenches started singing the same Christmas carols in their own language. So then, you know, somebody at some part of the line decided to pop their happy ass over the line, and they walked across no man's land. Which, seriously, if you have the balls to walk across no man's land during the trenches in World War I, seriously, dude, you deserve, like, every fucking medal that they have. But nobody knows who this guy was. Like, what if he died, like you know, like a week after this? Nobody knows that I'm aware of. So he walks across no man's land, and guess what, guys? This is the coolest part. This is why we have a Christmas tree, because that started as a pagan tradition that the Germans had, and he brought over a Christmas tree full of candles on it, because who the fuck would put lights on a tree? But the Germans did it because the Germans were like, you know what would look awesome on this tree right now to celebrate Christmas or whatever the pagan holiday was? Candles. And the Germans were like, you know what? Let's bring a tree that's lit on fire over to the French and the German lines. And so they brought it over. That's why we have the Christmas tree today. So guess what? I don't put up a Christmas tree for Christmas. I put up a Christmas tree for the Germans in World War I. That's what I put up a Christmas tree for. I don't know what you're doing it for. So they brought over their little Christmas tree, and then, you know, slowly over Christmas Day and everything, everybody came out. And you gotta understand, No Man's Land wasn't like just like nobody went there. No Man's Land was full of barbed wire, it was full of mines, it was full of dead bodies from all the different waves that they had done on the various sides to try and take over the trenches. If you're fighting trench warfare, the worst idea that you can possibly come up with is, oh, you know what would be a great idea? To go over these trenches into No Man's Land and try to take somebody out in the trench on the other side. That's a really good way to get yourself killed. Good job, everybody. That was a great war to have. Fucking solid. They're in no man's land with all these barbed wires and these mines and these dead bodies, and they're like, you know what's a good idea? Let's play soccer. That sounds like a great idea. So whatever. Everybody bonds on Christmas Day, right? And everybody has a great time. There's even a story out there. You know how the Germans, you probably don't know if you're listening to this drunk history, so I'm going to school you. The Germans, back in World War I, they had these helmets that had these points on the top of them, right? So a German gave an Englishman or a Frenchman, can't remember, his helmet with the little pointy top. And that was a really cool, you know, piece of memorabilia to have. That same German came back through no man's land like a couple weeks later and was like, hey dude, I gotta be in a parade. I need my helmet back, but I promise you I'll give you that helmet when I come back from the parade. And the guy was like, no problem, guy. I understand. I'm in the military too. So he gave him his helmet back, got that helmet back. Not even fucking kidding you. That is a true story. You can Google that shit. So, they played soccer and everything. They got the Christmas tree. They got all sorts of cool memorabilia. On some parts of the line, though, people who popped their heads up on Christmas Day would get shot by the other side of the line because they were being ruled by heartless bastards. And their command was like, you know what? Shoot everybody that pops their head up, because guess what? Just because it's Christmas doesn't mean that we're not fighting a war and you need to kill those bastards, which I kind of understand, but at the same time, let's get real. The Christmas Truce in 1914 was pretty fucking awesome. And sometimes people during the soccer games would try to get really close to the enemy trench and kind of like look around, you know, and see where everything was. And then the enemy would be like, hey, guy, hey, why don't you back the fuck up? We're playing a soccer game. We're not playing a scout the other guy's trench while he's not looking game. So why don't you go back and let's play soccer and quit doing this shady shit? How about that? But then after the Christmas truce, the next year, the German high command and the French and the English high command were like, hey, you know it's a horrible idea? Letting our troops know that the enemy is human too. How about next Christmas and for every Christmas after that in every war for the rest of forever, but especially World War I, we're going to bomb the shit out of the enemy trenches, and we're also going to rotate everybody, because you got to understand, in World War I, the trenches were only like a couple meters apart. So these guys could hear each other, talking to each other if they really wanted to. A big problem was the language barrier, but like with the Christmas carols, you hear the tune and you understand what they're trying to say. So they would rotate people out of the trench so that they couldn't become friends, and so that, you know, that whole helmet story, that couldn't happen anymore. So every Christmas after that, they were like, yeah, no, you're not going to make friends with the enemy, because we understand that the last thing we want our soldiers on the front lines to do is make friends with the enemy. So that's my favorite part of history. That is your drunk history lesson for today. I hope you learned something. If you didn't learn something, Google it.